One, two. How's everybody doing? All right, good. We got pressure, bro. We got to make this good.
Yeah, we got it. So, first of all, bro, I'm so proud of you. Props.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Cardi and I met back in, man, that would have been 98 probably. 98, 99.
Probably in the 90s sometime.
Late 90s.
I was only 6 years old.
Yeah. It's doing me dirty already.
Well, I mean, if I was 6, you were only 4.
Y'all gonna have fun this afternoon? All right, here we go. So they set me out some questions to do. We're gonna try to keep it organic though, because we got some, lots of stuff to talk about. But cool. Noticeably, why we're here today is for and I can't believe it, but probably shocking for all of us who have been heads forever. 50 years of hip hop, yo? 50? Yo, man, we've been doing this a long time. Collectively, it's more than 50.
Well, together, yes.
Right?
You know what? You know what's funny is whenever we talk about that, there was something I can't remember what it was. Something that I did the other day, and like my face was there, and people were like, "Oh, happy 50!" I was like, "I'm not 50 just yet. I still got a little bit of time." I was like,
right?
"Hip hop is 50, right? Not me." But just to make it fun for you guys, it's funny. I do have one of my older friends who did turn 50, and I was like, "Bro, you're older than hip hop." Like, because hip hop turns 50 in August. I was like, "Dude, that's crazy. You're older than hip hop, bro." Yeah. And he's like, "You just made my day so shit." But but listen, living to be 50 is amazing, and especially for the culture turning 52.
It's absolutely beautiful on both counts. Yes, I hear you.
Absolutely.
I'm pushing that envelope too.
Yep.
So let's do the housekeeping first, as they like to call it. Your performance tonight.
Yes.
So what's up? You doing Northern Touch?
We have to.
Mice, of course. Mice is in the house. Mice is in the house.
Yes, man. It's going to be myself, the Rascal, Chaclair, Maestro,
yep.
Checkmate and Concise will be there. It's going to be dope. Yeah, it's going to be dope. I'm looking forward to it. I go on at 9 o'clock, selfishly, but come earlier because the guys will be on from earlier as well.
And Mishimi was just here last week. Was it 2 weeks ago? Last week.
Last week?
2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago.
Okay, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, word.
Nice.
So they said I could kind of just do some organic stuff here. I see the notes. Talk about whatever you want kind of thing. I know we got to keep it to an hour, but I just have to say, growing from the island, West Coast kid, seeing what was happening on the East, the amount of inspiration made us want to do what we did. And to see that you guys are rocking and still have that connection with Respect, Rascals, Checkmate, Concise, that whole crew. I know you guys are thick as thieves. It's just very endearing still to see that kind of thing. I was just talking to Mocha only the other day via text. The power of hip hop, as we're talking about the 50th anniversary, the power that this culture has created from when Nate and I grew up, in this thing too, is we'd know people from all over the place. For us, West Coast connection, we'd be in California. Yo, homie, coming down for B-Boy Summit. Only met you once, but I need a couch to sleep on. Got you, B, whatever. It's such a beautiful thing that we grew up in and helped sculpt. I think it's okay to say that.
For sure.
We had an influence on this thing, especially in this country. Well,
Of
you worldwide, but in this country, we had a noticeable, I think, butterfly effect for it. And I think that's such a special thing.
I mean, I think you're being super humble right now, because I mean, it's like, to be honest, like you guys were, massive and had a massive movement, you know what I mean? So, I mean, he, rightfully so, he's chilling right now, but I mean, like, when you think about the West Coast and you think about, especially for Canada, you guys are on the Mount Rushmore or whoever the terrible politician is that we would have a mountain for, but you know what I mean? Like, you guys.
Mad Child's just on that one, not me. I'm on the.
Oh please! Oh please!
In the other museum. I'm just kidding.
Oh please! But I mean, I think it's dope. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like really and truly the same way that you guys felt about the East. That's how we were watching. You know what I'm saying? You guys on the West. You know what I'm saying? So you guys gotta definitely make noise for yourselves and for your West Coast heroes. You know what I mean? Because we were paying close attention as well, for sure.
Word. So here, I'm going to get to the tasting notes now because this is fun, actually. Shout out to Kenchi who wrote this stuff out. This is awesome. So you're rocking tonight with Wes, and we're talking about old school. So oddly enough, not to get into family history, but my second stepfather is loosely related, which makes me loosely related to King Lou from Dream Warriors.
Oh, sick.
Right? Which I didn't find out until I had already started rapping just before I graduated. I was like, what? I'm related to King Lou? He's my second cousin 3 times removed? that's pretty dope. But from those days when we started coming up, obviously tons of changes. I mean, your ear and your finger on the pulse to the industry is unlike no other. Biggest change hip-hop sonically, musically, from when we started to what it is now?
Oh, shoot. Biggest change sonically. I think that if you are somebody who is into like hip-hop always refreshing, resetting, evolving, and so forth, there's always going to be, I think that's what made hip-hop beautiful, was that you were always going to find something in somebody. It just depended on where you looked. So, meaning, like some people think, I want to be very specific with the language that I use with you guys, that they're like, hip-hop is a very 808-driven music now. But the funny thing is, like, initially, after we realized that there's other things outside of looping disco when hip-hop, started, is that hip-hop in the very early days was very, very much a 808-driven music. You know what I'm saying? When you think about anything from, like, Africa Bambaataa and the breakdance days and all that, like, we used the 808s different at that time, but I think, throughout the course of hip-hop, we've always kind of used the same pot. I think what we're seeing a little bit less of in the mainstream right now is maybe sample-based hip-hop, the way that when we were coming up, and I guess just moving forward, when I say our era, for us, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like we were teenagers in the 90s. So to us, that was like the pinnacle. That was like the hottest shit ever. Now, it's interesting looking back, hindsight being 2020, arguably that was probably the best time in hip-hop, only for the reason that everybody was still figuring things out. And in the discovery phase is when you have people being the most creative, because nobody knows what's going to work. Nobody knows what the fans are going to love. Nobody knows, and it wasn't as important, but nobody also knew what the industry, which also has evolved, we didn't know what they were going to embrace and promote. So I think during the 90s is a time where you did have, if you had people sampling jazz, it wasn't just a very specific type of jazz.
Yeah.
You had people that would sample anything from Bob James to Ramsey Lewis to Chick Corea to...
Sure. I was going to say the digging got deeper because the crates started getting thinner.
Right.
Right. People weren't just going to the classic James Brown loop or the the Chick Corea, Bob James. People literally had to start digging and figuring out how to flip samples backwards or slowing the tempo down.
Yeah.
And when the TR-808 was created, I'm not even sure, you might know better than me. Anyone know when the TR-808 drum machine was created?
The actual year? I don't know that off the top.
Actual year? Yeah, no. But it did. It changed the game.
It really did. So I think from them times till now, I think sonically there was just a lot more ear candy. You know what I'm saying? I just think it was just very, very diverse. If I was to think about at any given year, your top favorite MCs or your top favorite groups, nobody sounded alike. So if you had Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang had these dusty, broken, sometimes not mixed properly, crazy loops. But it's like the thing is, it was the energy that resonated with us. But then at the very same time that, that Wu-Tang was out, you have Notorious B.I.G., who, contrast to Wu-Tang, and who we both almost, I would say a lot of people loved equally at the time, had very shiny sonics. You know what I'm saying? Had, the Easy Mo Bees and the Hitmen and different people that, gave Biggie a certain type of sound. But what was ill was if we're looking at the top people in hip hop at the time, although all these different people occupied a different space, and sounded very different sonically, the spirit of hip hop was still very similar. And I think there was a common goal to where, you know, we came up at a time where it sounds funny, but the word hater wasn't invented at that time. So to me, when the word hater came in, I was like, that's such a, who came up with this shit? It was terrible, because what it did was it made an excuse for people to get away with whack shit at the end of the day. So there was a real difference. Hip hop it never really used to be a mainstream thing. And I think what's dope is that there are kids growing up right now to where hip hop is the same as anything else. They grew up with hip hop being equal and in some cases more powerful than country, than classical, than whatever. But the interesting thing was, at a time when we were coming up, hip hop was very much an underground thing, and you had to be tapped in to the culture to understand it, which is why the term hater never really made sense, because if you were trash, there was a certain level, there was a certain standard.
You wouldn't even be in the conversation circle. You wouldn't. There's no way you're jumping in. If you jump in a cipher, you're getting dummied, homie. Mm-hmm. Straight up. Mm-hmm. It's also interesting too, because when we grew up, we're talking about like Hank Shockley and Keith Shockley, the producers for Public Enemy, the Dust Brothers, who produced Paul's Boutique famously for Beastie Boys. Mm-hmm. The sound was so different. Public Enemy, I mean, come on, man. Shout out Chuck D, Flav, Terminator X.
Absolutely.
Right? Nasty, super aggressive rap music, super aggressive style of hip hop, politically driven, motivated, smart, intelligent rap music. Always loved that. But all our favorite artists when we were growing up were all signed to major labels. Independent music for hip hop didn't exist then. That transition,
or it was very rare. Anyway.
Very rare. I mean, no one. Maybe you're pressing some white label stuff, or you're, making some cassette tapes and handing them out, doing the Too Short kind of thing out of the trunk of the car. All our favorite rappers were all signed to major labels. Mm-hmm. We just knew the code. We spoke the code. We found that thing. You had to order. I mean, you literally had to order. I grew up in Victoria. You had to order cassette tapes or vinyl from your local record store. It wasn't just go order it and it's there in your inbox in 25 seconds. Thank you, Nate, by the way. I just checked my watch, and thank you for having that back, bro. Cardi and I were laughing about that backstage. I'm like, I just got my watch back, baby. You had to wait for it, but you earned it. We worked on it. We learned the language. We read the magazines. We felt like we were part of something very special, which we were. Mm-hmm. And so this leads me to my next question. Challenges modern artists facing these days. There's so much more access, obviously. Clearly, you can become your own management team, your own publicist, your own media outlet, and you sort of have to wear all these hats now as an artist. But that transition, how do you feel about that? Because you're at the cusp of that. The importance of still being on a major, the access to being on a major. How do you feel about that?
So there's a couple of things. One is, just very quickly, I want to wrap up that last conversation that we were having a couple seconds ago, only because when we're talking about sonics and the evolution of sonics and how it's changed and so forth, the one thing that's interesting, and whenever I get an opportunity to speak to people who either participate in the culture, want to learn more about the culture, or want to figure out ways to push the culture forward, if you think about other genres of music, they still have standards, but I don't mean like standards in the way that you're thinking. I'm thinking about jazz standards. In order to be considered a great jazz musician, there's still certain pieces of music that if you can't play this music, people do not regard you as an actual real jazz musician. There are certain standards within jazz, within classical, that if you cannot sing a certain thing, you're not considered at least a legitimate opera singer and so forth. Within hip hop, what we're doing is we're bringing the standards way down here. So what's interesting is we're opening up access to everybody, which is cool because people want to participate. You don't want to create barriers, but at the same time, in some ways, whether we want to or not, we are also bringing down the quality of hip hop. And that's kind of like giving context to why I was upset, or why, not upset, but why I just don't agree with the term hater, is because if we were discussing jazz right now, and we're like, all right, we need you to be able to play whatever the song is, take your pick, and they couldn't play it. As a jazz community, we together, it's not that we're haters, we'd be like, well, bro, you need to go back, be able to play this shit. As soon as you play that shit, then you're legit. Like, you have an actual conversation. Yeah. I think today, unfortunately, a lot of us, we have to sit down and listen to a lot of trash rappers, a lot of trash production because, you know, we have so much access to it. And this is leading to now where you are when we're talking about major labels and we're talking about, you know, I guess what it's like for everybody to have access and so forth. And it's interesting because you guys, like, we'll keep this here, so just in this room, but working with the major labels but also being an artist, it's like putting on the wizard's cloak. Because it's like whenever I go into the labels, sometimes they forget that I'm an artist. And when I am in the artist communities, sometimes they forget that I work with the labels. So for me, it's really dope because it's like I get to have very transparent, honest conversations with both sides. But for me, the goal and the intention is always to push the envelope on both sides. So knowing and having the information on the executive side, when I sit down with artists, when I sit down with managers, producers, and so forth, I have a less opinionated base conversation and more of, I'm like, listen, this is what's happening within the industry. This is the way that we're moving. I think you're incredible, but you do not have the education that you need in order to flourish the way that you should.
What does that education look like from the label standpoint for you, from an A&R standpoint?
So I want to narrow it down and be more specific, like towards like when I'm having the conversations with the artists.
Yeah.
It's, for me, it's, I don't give generic overviews or, you know, any type of help or guidance. I think each artist and each person that you deal with, everybody in this room probably has their own story. And within that own story walks a very specific and unique journey. And I think that's where maybe sometimes labels go wrong, sometimes, is when they do try and maybe paint that broad stroke that they think can fit him and it's also gonna fit her and that person in the back. It's been my experience that the most successful person once, think about it like this. Remember when 50 Cent came out? Everybody remembers when 50 came out, how it was absolutely bananas. What happened after that? It's not a trick question. Anybody, what happened after 50 came out? You remember? But maybe that might be true, but you know why? Because everybody was like, 50 did mixtapes, I'm gonna do mixtapes. 50 did a mixtape tour, I'm gonna do a mixtape tour. The thing was, 50 did it, and he created his own, in essence, his own plate for him to eat off of. But what happened was everybody saw how that worked for him, and they're like, shit, well, let me try it, because maybe that's gonna work for me. Didn't work that way. It's the same way, like, remember what happened when The Weeknd came out? Remember, nobody knew what The Weeknd looked like. Mystery, woohoo! For the next 10 years, everybody tried to mimic that same thing to where they're like, I'm mysterious. And people are like, we just saw it, we're good. So I say that to say, it's like everybody's journey is different. Everybody has unique qualities, and everybody, once they do enough self-reflection and they take enough time with themselves first, they realize that it's, oh man, there's going to be some terrible cliches I was about to say, so let me not say it, but, well, I said it now. So think about it like a snowflake. Everything has its own unique pattern. But it's like, literally, at the end of the day, none of you guys, even if you were born identical twins, nobody is the same as anybody else on this planet. And I think musically, we all draw inspiration from somewhere. You know what I'm saying? We all maybe are affected by different amazing things that we've grown up on, and we pull inspiration from it. But I think in terms of expression, everybody really has their own thing that they bring to the table. And I think in terms of me being an executive and working with these labels is really kind of being like the artist whisperer, to say like, what is your message to the world, or what is your energy you're bringing to the world? What is it that you're bringing to the planet that nobody has seen, or what's your spin on it? You know what I mean?
Well, this is awesome, right? Come on, man. Give that up. Because I think for a lot of artists, they just, they go into these establishments, and I have, my experience being signed to Virgin Records with Swollen, and we walked into Capitol Records. I'm going to keep this one short, but walk into Capitol Records. The dude knew damn well we were walking to the office. We get into the office, he's got his feet up on the thing. Send him in. So who are you guys? We're like, oh, we're Swollen members. No. That's not what I'm asking. Who are you guys? And the last time I asked that question and someone said something successful, they became a pretty big rock group called Metallica. This meeting fucking sucks. We're out. We didn't get signed. We didn't get signed to Capitol. We did get signed to Virgin. But this is a nice segue into this next question here that they have. Because I think we both have obviously, when was that sort of moment for you when you knew this is what you wanted to do? I was working at a restaurant in West Van, working fine dining. And we had this weekend off. It was supposed to be a staff meeting thing. We went up to Whistler every year. Great boss, fantastic restaurant. She'd pay for all the food, suppliers, all the booze, everything. If you wanted to snowboard or ski, you had to get your own lift ticket. Fair enough. Accommodations, everything paid for. I call my friend Simone. I'm like, hey, going to the island or going to Whistler for the weekend? Come over from the island. Bring your snowboard. Let's go up and rip up the mountain. She's like, yeah, cool. Shows up. I get in a massive fight with my boss that night for some stupid shit. I'm like, you know what? Forget this, man. I'm not going to the staff party. Let's go to San Francisco. We drove all the way to San Francisco, went to Del, the funky Homo sapiens house. I call up Del, we're in the Bay Area. I'm like, Del, what's up, man? He's like, what's up, Giggity? What's going on, Pete? You've met Del, you know how he talks. What's up, dog, Giggity? Yeah, no, just over here playing some video games with Festo and, yeah, man, no, come through. Yeah, no, Casual's on his way too, dog, Giggity, it's cool, yeah. So rolled through, hung out with Del for the weekend and all hieroglyphics, changed my life. Got back to work, I was late. My boss was like, yo, dog, don't even bother getting changed. We need to talk. We had a wine cellar downstairs at the restaurant. He's like, you got two choices, man. You're really good at this industry. You could serve, you could probably open your own restaurant. I enjoy cooking. Wouldn't say I'm a chef, but I enjoy cooking. I could have gone either way. He said, but you got to make a choice. Swollen was starting to book some shows on the weekend kind of thing. He's like, you're kind of messing up my schedule anyway, so make a choice. Chose music, thankfully. And that to me was my moment of calling. I realized, thank you, Mark, for tearing me a new asshole. But you put me on that precipice of having to make a choice. I kind of knew where my heart was going, but sometimes you just need those words of encouragement or discouragement, maybe in that case, but whatever that moment is for you, what was your moment? That was mine.
Shit, I wish I had a defining moment like that. It would make it much easier. In terms of like pursuing it professionally?
Yeah.
Two-part moment. One of them only because I kind of, in an interesting way, relived it this week. One of my friends who was our road manager at the time, started sending me all this stuff. Like I was getting all these texts of like, I remember like my first magazine cover and just all this stuff from like back in the day when I was going to university. And I remember three parts. So I remember in Toronto, I went to York University. And I remember right before going to class, right outside, this is back when like physical magazines were the thing before everything was online. And I remember going into class, I remember seeing a stack of magazines. At the time was called Mic Check magazine. Full, not just my face, my full body. Like I was on the cover of the magazine and I was like, huh.
Tall magazine.
I was like, this.
Magazine was this big. Tall dude.
But I remember like that was, for me, that was an interesting thing because I was just, I was a student that I was trying it, but I was like, here I am now on the cover of this magazine. I'm like, huh, this is different. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I remember we always used to go to Windsor University had an ill weekend called Windsor Sports Weekend. And, they had tournaments and stuff, but they also had like the dopest performances. And I remember they had asked me to perform, to headline the Saturday at Windsor Sports Weekend. And I remember for me, it was the first time being recognized like oh, that's him. Like we were just walking normally. And I know it, you guys are like, what are you talking? Some of you guys might be like, I don't understand. I rarely go in the front door of places anymore. So at the time, this is a regular thing. You just walk through the front. So I remember me and the crew, we were walking through the front, and I just remember, we were just having conversation. And I remember people walking by, they're like, yo, that's Kardinal. Yo, that's Kardinal. And I remember for me, I was like, the hell is going on? Like super weird, because it's like also never, you know what I'm saying? Like even in Toronto, it's like, as a rapper coming up, it's not like people looked at you that kind of a way. You know what I'm saying? At the time, people that were in the scene, they knew who you were, but the average or regular, just everyday person wasn't a thing. So I remember going to Windsor Sports Weekend, and of course, because it was mostly girls, it was also awesome. But that was the first time that, like, I remember, you know what I'm saying, that there was a difference between just being, a regular guy coming up, and then all of a sudden, like, people had saw me on whatever it was, Much Music back in those days or what have you, and noticing that change. But
Touch had already dropped.
no, not that time. It was before. Yeah, it was before. It was a couple years before. I guess for me, the defining moment, mine, was actually with my mom. So I remember in my mind, I was like, this university and hip hop, it can't exist at the same time. I got to do one or the other. Mm-hmm. And for me, I remember I was like, well, I'm going to have to, have that conversation with my mom. So I remember my mom was in the shower, doing the shower thing. I knocked on the door, and, she probably thought I wanted to ask something random. Hey, yeah, bus fare, something. And I remember saying to her, she was on the other side of the shower curtain, I remember saying to her, I'm like, so I don't think I'm gonna go to school anymore. I think I wanna pursue this rap thing, because it's moving right now, and I don't know if there's gonna be another window,
sure,
you know what I mean, for me to be able to have the success. And I remember she didn't say anything for a cool 20 seconds, which felt like 10 years, obviously. And she's like, university will always be there. Music won't be. If a year goes by, doesn't kind of work out, you know what you got to do. And I remember being like, fair.
Give it up for
so,
Cody's mom. Come
yeah,
on, man.
for sure.
I had that same kind of, if you believe in it, do it. My mom was always good with that too. So yeah,
Nice.
It's amazing to have that support system.
I mean, listen, my mom, though she worked for the Toronto Board of Education, a little bit different.
My mom worked in a bookstore, so
well,
kinda
similar. It is similar. Yeah, it is similar. It is similar.
We both read a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Guess what I got every year for my birthday?
I was gonna say
Books.
read a lot of shit from our face. That's the thing.
That's right too. Bro, can we take some questions from audience members?
Of course, I love it.
Cool. Okay.
I love it.
And I think am I okay on my timeline, Kenji? How am I doing? Good. Okay. Question from audience member. That's in bold. In your experience, I'm going to get this right, so I'm going to quote this brother. In your experience throughout your evolution within the music industry, do you believe it is still worthwhile for developing artists to pursue deals with major labels?
Depends. Really depends. And working within a major label system on the other side of the Iron Curtain, as I call it, knowing what I know now, nothing is cookie cutter. Like before, when I was coming up, that was the goal. That was also the indicator that you've made it, is when you sign a major label deal. Here's the thing that's interesting, is we live in a time where it really depends on what your goals are. It depends on how you see yourself, and also how you want to structure your business. And within the major label system, there are really some people that don't belong in a major label system because it's not for them. Some people are I'll say for us, when I was coming up, shout out to Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan is now, I don't want to mess up his title, but I think he's like president of OVO for Drake and them. Mr. Morgan managed myself and the Rascals and a bunch of us coming up, and still a good friend. But our motto used to be independent hustle with the major label muscle. So, and this was like late 90s, early 2000s. That's always how we've thought of this industry, is even when we do partner up, and I'm using partner for a specific reason that I'll finish off that question with, is that we always looked at it as a partnership. We didn't want to get signed and then say, all right, labels, make me a star. Like, we were always like, the way that I think a lot of us at that time got to where we were within the industry, a lot of us in Canada, is that we were indie. You know what I'm saying? We all had our independent labels that were rocking. So if you think about any of us, Socrates, Choclair, you guys, Rascals, Ghetto Concept, anybody that you can think of, we all were DIY. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all saved up our money. We all figured out ways for us to get our music to the people at a time where internet was not a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we literally had to press up physical things. A lot of times we either shipped it to these different countries, Japan, Europe, wherever, or we physically would go with our product to these places, not just to distribute it, but also to meet these different people. So when people ask like about major labels, it really does depend on what it is that you're trying to get from the major label. And I say that because when I first got my deal with MCA back in MCA Records out of LA back in 2000, record labels were set up a lot different than they are now. So they had something for every little piece of what it is that you were doing. So if you're making it up, but you know, if we're doing a photo shoot for the album, they're literally taking part and laying out every single thing for you, every single thing you could think of. Like, I just remember, you know, after we did all of the things, and I remember they came literally with this book, and they're just like, yeah, just pick what you want, circle what you want. You know, we'll take care of the rest. For Firestarter Volume 1.
For gear?
For everything.
Oh.
For everything.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, but it's not like that anymore.
No.
So it's important to understand, because I think as artists, what we haven't done is we haven't made the transition to understand what the role is or can be of major labels in 2023 and moving forward. We're still thinking about it as this entity that used to exist, you know, back in the day, but that's not how it is anymore. A lot of times, to be honest, and you know what, let me speak for myself. When we are looking at new artists, when we're looking at new situations, when we are following the algorithms and seeing what's popping up and all the rest of it, we're looking to the artist for the direction. Whereas before, it used to come from the major labels. Major labels used to say, I like the way that this guy has his earphones on the outside of his hoodie. We're gonna make that a thing. We're gonna make stickers. And then the street team's gonna do X, Y, and Z. And then when we get him on VH1, we're gonna, you understand what I'm saying? Like, there was
you had 12 people working on a release.
You had
in multiple different levels at any given time.
You had 12 people per department working on this shit.
Yeah.
But the thing that's a lot different is it's not necessarily like that anymore. Now we're like, okay, well, similar to my guy that had his feet up on the table asking like, well, who are you guys? And I've been there too. Like, what's your story? Fuck off, I have good music. I think what happens now is it's like, you have to ask yourself as an artist, is this label something that is going to help me achieve my dreams or my goals? You know what I'm saying? Like, there are some people to where I'm like, all right, it says here, you have 16 million streams already and the trajectory is only going up. It says here, you're making X amount per show. All of the above. Why are you here? You know what I'm saying? Like, and this is, of course, me with the cloak on, because anybody I work with at the label will be like, shut the hell up. But the point is, it's like, you really got to see, like, what is the point of you going to the major? What is it? What are you looking at from the partnership? Because there are some people who, honestly, there are some people that don't actually need it. But people say, you know, record labels are like dinosaurs. We don't need them anymore. But I think it's only because you don't have a clear understanding of all sides of the business. Because one thing that I will say very quickly, is that major labels still is just like any other big corporation in Canada, America, or wherever. There are resources, there are advantages. It's just, you just have to figure out if those resources and advantages work with what you're planning, work with what your dreams are and your business aspirations.
I always found that one of the greatest assets from being on a major, well, we were with Network for distribution, but through Sony Universal for distro, was just having that camaraderie with other bands. Swollen went out with Biff Naked and Gob on our first tour across Canada. We were like, this doesn't make any sense. But we were, we were spitting.
I've done it too.
You do that sort of crossover thing, and it fits and it makes sense. The whole point is, like you were saying, I've already got my, maybe not 6 million streams a month kind of thing, but you already have your fan base is already built in. It's not about accessing your current fan base. It's about reaching out to other people who you think are like-minded and might enjoy what you're also doing. And there comes the power of the label. Hey, man, we got 15 artists. 10 of them are going out this year on tour. They're touring Europe. They're touring, the US, Canada, whatever. I think there might be a good matchup there for you guys. And that's how, when you start jumping on those opening slots, and then eventually the goal is obviously to be, in 2 years after that, the headliner, right? So I think you just answered this second question already. So let's, sorry, audience member, I'm going to skip that one. But this one's awesome because we just watched this video. You got a shout out from Lil Wayne.
Oh, yes.
Right? Come on. So I know all the collaborations, which is crazy. You heard Kentia doing his discography before. Amazing, all the people that you've worked with. Someone you haven't worked with that you'd like to collaborate with? Dream artist matchup?
Probably most MC's dream is 3000. Andre 3000 for sure. That's still like top of the food chain for me. Blessed to say that there's not many. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the other thing. Not everybody that I love do I necessarily want to meet. And not everybody that I love do I necessarily want to do music with.
Be careful meeting your heroes.
Be careful meeting your heroes, because there are times where I met people, I'm like, what a dick. And it's like, you've been lifelong fans of these people. This is amazing that you meet them. You're like, not frisbeeing all their CDs, like, this is trash. Yeah, let me see. You know, ironically, not a lot of rappers. Not a lot of rappers. Only because I don't know, like where I'm at in my life and in my career is, it's like all you guys out there, just put the TM beside it, don't bite my shit. But it's like a lot of people are just like RAR files, like just rapping about rapping. And it's like, we can do that easily. Like, there's probably a lot of MCs in here. We can rap about rapping all we want, but it's just like, how do you show people that you're an ill MC at the same time as making sure that you have some type of content that is going to be impactful? That's where I'm at. That's where I am. Like, if I was just to come out with like just some shit about how I'm the illest MC and whatever, like, for sure, I could do that. Easy, put it out. People are like, there's an LMC. But like, for me, it's like I want to be able to put something out to where people are like, he's dope, but that line that he said just changed my life. Or that line that he said just reinforced what I was thinking but too afraid to say out loud. The one thing about hip hop that is so ill is, even if you look at the word count, and I've always been envious of other genres, because I'm like, these guys have like 80 words to learn for the whole song,
the whole set,
including the hook.
Yeah.
I have like 256 in the first verse. You know what I'm saying?
And there's syllable. There's a lot of syllables in a lot of this stuff that we're saying.
My gosh. So, But you know what I'm saying? Like for me, honestly, I think that's the beauty of hip hop is that we can say so much. In one song, we can say the equivalent of like other people's like 5 songs for somebody else. So it's like for me, there's a certain level of responsibility, not in the way that you guys are thinking, but more responsibility to myself, to where I love to be able to sleep with a clean heart, good conscience, and not wake up in the middle of the night. I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I want to be able to sleep well and for people to be like, love the art of it for art's sake, but at the same time have it have some kind of social impact.
And that's great. I've always respected your writing style, your delivery, and I think we have, although I didn't go to college or university, but I think we have always had that appreciation for, like you said, the responsibility of it. I've always been a little more cryptic. I've started to learn, kind of speak off the heart a little more, but I always liked being a bit more of a professorial sort of an approach to being an MC. I wanted people to have to decrypt what I was saying. I was very cryptic rapper. But there is a responsibility for us. And I think, again, hearkening back to the Public Enemy conversation, the importance of whether it's political, whether it's social justice, which we're going to jump into your next piece here about your social justice award, there is a responsibility for MCs. Some people don't take it that way, which is fine. You treat it as an art form, do whatever you want to get off your chest, do your thing. But I think for people like us that do take it seriously, maybe it's the era that we grew up in, we take the shit seriously. Rapping's not just some fun little hobby on the side that we do just to have some fun making words rhyme. We really take this culture and our role in it to heart. I know we both do. So, segueing into that. Social Justice Award last week, Canadian Music Week. Give it up. What? Come on, man. Again, I want to get these quotes right. So we all know that advocacy work is very important to you and that you're heavily involved. Tell us more about what is so rewarding about this part of your work, and are there any organizations that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, just going back again to my mom, like my mom is she wouldn't retire. She's not going to retire anytime soon. And she could have a long time ago. Growing up, watching my mom be very active within the community, just, I think, you know, you couldn't not soak it up and have that become a part of your energy. And it's not just my mom. I mean, obviously that's my first point of contact, but it's like there are so many people that I'm surrounded by. There's a lot of different people who have, made philanthropy more of a centerpiece to their life. Because I think at the end of the day, like, you know, it's cool no matter what you do, whether you're a musician or you own a restaurant or you're into fashion or whatever it is. For most of us, that can't just be it in life. You know what I mean? Is that you have a successful business and you're eating steak and lobster all the time. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of an empty existence. I think the older that you get, and now that we're 22, it's like living a... don't understand the laughing. But living a purposeful life, that is really where a lot of us see the true success. You know what I'm saying? Is when we all understand individually, like, what's our purpose? All right, cool. We know what our purpose is. How do we amplify that purpose or have that purpose be able to successfully affect somebody else's life? You know, my mom has an organization that she created a few years ago called the Ripple Effect. And I think that's a really dope name because it's like, if you think about it, even if I just affect you today, if nobody else was paying attention and they were just looking at my hat that says Gallus and that's all they went back with, but you were listening and you go home and you have a conversation with a family member or a friend and that person then starts to make that ripple happen, ultimately that is the greatest type of ripple effect. Even within this room, this conversation that we've been having about various things to do with, with music, philanthropy, business, all these different things, that type of work with and for the people is the dopest. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, there's a lot of things that I do, but I'm not saying that to say, oh, look at me. What I'm saying is that at the end of it, at the core, there's gotta be purpose. There's gotta be something that you're trying to do. And I think for me, it's always being able to try as best as I can to use my platforms and my opportunity to be able to then inject some good back into our communities, back into our cities and our countries. Because at the end of the day, many times, whether we're scrolling on our phone and we're like, oh, this is jacked up. Like, how many times a day do we do that to where we see something crazy on our phones or like, that's wild. But what do we do about it? We keep scrolling and we're like, I'm glad I don't live in that city, or glad that person's it's not happening to me. I think the most important thing that I can leave with you guys today when it comes to philanthropy and when it comes to social justice and all these other type of things is it's like, do what you can when you can, and you guys pick the why in terms of why you're doing it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, however many people we are here, some of you guys are like, oh man, well, this thing that I want to solve may take 100 hours. I don't have 100 hours to give. But guess what? If there's 100 of us in here and we all donate 1 hour, we can achieve that 100 hours that we need to change something. Some of us, like, listen, the reality is like some of us, shit, the mortgage rates are going up in this country, inflation is happening, access to jobs are going down. There's a lot of people since the pandemic that has, been laid off for various reasons, and times are tough. So sometimes we're like, I would love to be able to help that person. I only have $5. What is $5 gonna do? Again, if everybody in this room contributes a $5, that, there's strength in numbers. And that is gonna be, all of us working together will be able to have something that can affect a certain situation in a positive way. So in terms of what we're talking about and me receiving a social justice award, like it was, it's not about, like that award is not about me. It's a reflection of what I've been able to do for the people and with the people. You know what I'm saying? Like receiving an award, like it's kind of weird where you're like, look what I have done, help the people. Like, I don't know. There's probably people that do that, but I'm not one of them. The point of that is everybody take whatever you can do in your own way and be proud of that. Don't beat yourself up also, because I know that I do it. But I know that at the beginning of the year for me on my vision board is I challenge myself. How am I going to be able to give more, do more? And I put that on my vision board so that when I'm in my studio and I look at that vision board, I'm like, all right, cool. It motivates me, you know what I'm saying, to want to figure it out. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what we all do, no matter what level we're at, no matter where we're at in life, is figuring out. So just be good to yourself when it comes to anything that you're trying to do. Work with charities, philanthropy, anything of that sort.
Brother man, you guys have a good time? Okay, just as we talked about, just a nice organic conversation, and Kentia is like, you got it. I was like, what, 5? She's like, no, now. So we ended on a beautiful note. Brother, it's great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Don't forget, he's rocking tonight with some other Canadian legends, so make sure you go check that out. All the G's are going to be in the place.
That's right. What beach is it again?
Sunset Beach.
Sunset Beach.
Yes,
Sunset
I'm up.
Beach.
Oh, there we go, Sunset Beach.
I'll be there in this dumbass thick sweater, sweating my ass off.
But let me take, you probably don't know. Let me
Go.
take a quick 30 seconds just because I love not just the elevation of hip hop, but also like what's dope about growing up in hip hop and what's dope about this country and everything that we're doing is when I had the honor, and for me, I'm very thankful that you guys came out today, and thank you for having me today for sure. But I remember they gave me a list of different people who they're like, yo, who do you want to sit down with? We have a list of some people. And I was like, I want to sit down with Prevail. And well, first of all, you absolutely cheer for him because he was an awesome person to do it. But I'll tell you what's interesting, but what I love just about the evolution and the growth and just like seeing generically how hip hop has evolved, but just even as MCs, as just people within the industry is, I don't know, it wouldn't have been the first time. The first time we came here was trash. There was 4 people at our show. The first time we ever came out here was horrible. Richards on Richards, and it's like, it was so horrible. I remember there was this old couple, they were 70, they were ballroom dancing. I was like, how did we get from one end of the country to the other to be here for somebody to be ballroom dancing at our show? But anyways, the funny thing was that I remember there was a time that, like, you know, as MCs, and this is what he said, like, when we take our shit seriously, like, there was one time that we got into a battle on stage, and I don't even remember what the show was. It's, at this point, it doesn't matter. Was that at Richards too? Is there
ballroom dancing that night, though.
Okay, no one's ballroom dancing that night. But the point was, it's like, you know, them times, like, as, you know, much younger MCs, and everybody's like, oh, I'm the illest, oh, and there's all this, like, you know what I mean, testosterone and rap shit and whatever, and East Coast and West Coast and all the rest of that bullshit. The thing that's dope is this, like, as 2 dudes that have grown up, we've had our experiences and the whole 9, is that we were able to come together and I hope have a fruitful conversation that these people were able to get something from. I hope you guys learned some stuff. I hope it reinforced some stuff. But I just wanted to end it on the fact that that's what's ill and what's amazing about hip hop is that it's very ego driven and all the rest of it. But what's doper is that when you come together, there's so much more that you can accomplish. You know what I'm saying? So I just hope from whatever communities, whatever cities, whatever your mind state is at, whatever you're doing, that you just realize that coming together 9 times out of 10 is going to be a doper situation. And I think even with my crew, The Circle, that's how we were able to get where we were going, was coming together. So anybody that loves and appreciates hip hop, y'all continue to come together, continue to gather like this, and you know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna be even further in the next 5 to 10. And also big up my Advance family, you know what I'm saying? Because this couldn't have been possible without Advance. And that's definitely something that, like, 3 or 4 of us dreamt up years ago, where we're like, man, we need to do it. And now we're almost at 1,000 members across the country, which is very, very, very dope. So again, it's just a testament, you know what I'm saying, to the fact that we are much stronger together in their strength in numbers. So again, thank you guys for having me. Love y'all.
Yay. Let's give it up for both of them. We'll let them have their love. Kardinal, there's going to be 4 questions from the audience.
Oh, nice.
We'll do it quickly.
No problem.
Thanks, Prevail.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, y'all.
Enjoy LL. Okay, the first one's here. You can introduce yourself.
Hey, how are you doing? My name is Jamal Steels from Crimes and Treasons Radio.
What up?
Hey, how are you doing? So my question for you is, a lot of people are saying nowadays that radio isn't relevant anymore. I know there's
lies.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was asking. I want to see what's the way that we can make, or me specifically, college radio station can still make it relevant to artists, and not only artists, but the industry, get some more attention. And also, is there a way for us to still succeed with the rise of DSPs out there, and like everybody getting their music online? Is there a way to still get people to still believe in radio?
So I'm glad that you made the distinction between college and commercial. Many people don't know that college radio is actually the backbone of how, you know, most of the OGs or the legends that actually made a name for themselves, we couldn't have done it quite literally without college radio in this country, only because there was no infrastructure. College radio was one of the only outlets that we had on a consistent basis. So especially, like, for those of you that have never been to Toronto and understood how that scene used to work, we literally either went to 88.1, 89.5, 105.5. Like, for us, college radio was the place to gather. Anytime the biggest rappers in the world came from out of the country for a concert, they would pass through college radio. So culturally, you know, it's always been very important to how we've seen success in this country. What I would say, though, in terms of moving forward, is that college radio, it still can't exist. It can no longer exist in a silo, meaning that there are other things that you're going to have to inject into what it is that you're currently doing. You know what I'm saying? So although, you know, you have the DSPs out there, you got to figure out, all right, what can we do digitally? What can we do online? You know what I'm saying? To maybe even it out a little bit, you know, because before college radio, it just what it was. It was something you turn on your radio in your car, your boombox or whatever, and you're tuning in. Now, all we're doing is fighting for time. We're fighting for time and attention. So if you want to fight for the people's time, it's really just figuring out how to compete in a digital space. And I think once you figure that out, you can still exist same way. I think radio is still very, very important. Although there's a lot of us that curate how we listen to music much differently. We're not necessarily depending on other people. I think that culturally there still are ways to get people's attention and to get people's time. But that is really just to be realistic and understand that we live in a time where you got to put some sauce on it. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you got to do something to figure out what's going to get people's attention. Just the same way Funkmaster Flex had to reinvent himself, start doing all the freestyle, start doing a bunch of stuff so that we're tuning into Funkmaster Flex, and that's on a commercial level. It's the same thing that we got to do on any level, is figure out what that thing is and then compete within the new spaces.
Thank you. Next one's over here.
My name is Jordell, and I just want
What up?
What's good? I just wanted to say thank you for coming out here, and I really agree with your sentiment in terms of do your things your way. And I think my biggest question was, how do you maintain and nurture relationships in the music industry without being overbearing? Because I feel like a lot of people are juggling 10 things at once, and time is very important to not only to everybody. So how would we go about doing that, pretty much?
It's a good question. Relationships are super important. And I think it's weird for me, may not be weird for a lot of you, but a lot of us don't know how to communicate anymore. We don't have interpersonal skills. We don't know how to communicate in person. So there are people that I can have full conversations with through DMs and emails and whatever. And then I see somebody and they might stand beside me for the entire night. And then at the end of the night be like, hey, so I'm Tim. What? You're Tim? Tim didn't say shit to me the 3 hours that they were standing beside me. And it's because people literally don't know how to have a conversation anymore. So I think there is such value in being able to figure out ways to have that conversation without being overbearing. Because then there's the flip side of that, to where somebody's like, hey, what's going on? My name is Tim. Remember this? What is that? And you're just like, yeah, it's too much. I don't have time. It's too much. So I think relationships of any sort, it's just like, shit, to be honest, we may have a conversation, the conversation might be trash. It's happened to me, to where it's like, there's this person I always wanted to meet, and I'm like, oh, there they are. And they're like, Kardinal? I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? In my mind, there's 1,000 things happening, and what comes out is, yep, so saw you were in the bathroom. That's cool. Whole shit's fucked up. Whole thing. But I think the lesson to learn in that is that relationships are relationships. Romantic relationships, platonic, business relationships. There's a core to it, and the core is, how do I connect with this person or these group of people, right? And it is what it is. Like, sometimes no matter, like, this girl, and this is just for me, so I'm not putting it on you guys, but sometimes there's this girl, and I'm like, man, she's beautiful. She dresses the way that I like. She eats the same foods. We've gone on 10 dates. I'm like, damn it. just not gonna work. And there are the people that will stick with that girl in hopes that 5 years down the line, something's gonna change, but you probably knew within a few dates, it wasn't the girl for you, or it wasn't the person for you. And I think that same thing happens even within a business setting, to where sometimes there are people that you're like, this is just not a fit. But I think just like within that romantic relationship, take the cues, move on, don't force it, don't be overbearing. Yeah.
Nice. Next one is from Lokita.
Hey, what's up? I'm Lokita.
Hey.
Hold on a sec. All right, so I have two questions. What do you think is missing from the Canadian music industry, specifically for Canadian hip hop artists? And then my second question is, what are 3 key factors you think artists need to know before jumping into the industry full time?
Yikes. First question was
What do you think the industry is missing for hip hop artists?
for hip hop artists in Canada.
Yeah.
Infrastructure and opportunity. Full stop. Unfortunately, Canada, we develop in terms of black music anyway, at a very slow rate. It's the cruise ship mentality, to where we're making the changes, but it's different from a speedboat. You know what I'm saying? If somebody's like, yo, the party's actually the other way. When you're in the speedboat, one quick U-turn and you're out. Whereas anybody that's been on a cruise ship, you know how long it takes for you to be able to make that U-turn. So I think, unfortunately, we still need to culturally, monetarily invest a lot more in this country when it comes to music, which is why, unfortunately, we still have to leave for the most part a lot of times, because the infrastructure isn't there and the opportunities, unfortunately, aren't there. And not just within the music industry in terms of like labels and publishers, but also if you think about the corporations that people do brand partnerships with. When you go to Europe or the States or Asia, people invest big dollars, you know what I'm saying, within their artists. So it's like, and I don't want to give anybody any unnecessary shine, especially because they haven't paid me. But the point is that, like, you go to other places and it's like, you know, you have a brand deal. That brand deal might allow for you to do a lot of stuff that you want to do within your music. You feel what I'm saying? Like, you're wearing a Kangol right now, and I'm making it up, but you might go somewhere where Kangol has a certain amount of budget within their entertainment division, to where they're going to give you a check for X amount to be a brand ambassador for the year. Now, this is something that organically you've already been wearing and so forth, but now you have a formalized relationship, and that money that you know, which is another revenue stream, is now allowing you to leverage other things, to where you're like, well, I don't necessarily need these people. I can take some of the money from my Kangol deal, and I'm now going to invest that back into my merch, which is another revenue stream that's going to allow you to then, you know, maybe put money into your digital buys when it comes to putting your money out for your DSPs. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a way, once you have the infrastructure and the opportunity, to leverage many different things into your common goal. And I think that's what we're lacking a lot of times, unfortunately, at least within hip hop, R&B, Afro, jazz, whatever. In this country, that's what we're lacking, is the infrastructure and resources. Second part.
Yeah. What are 3 key factors that you think every artist needs before jumping into the industry full time?
Before jumping into the industry full time, 3 key factors. A clear, defined goal. Sometimes you would go to somebody, they might have the gift of the gods, but if they don't know what they want to do with their career, mistake number 1. So a clear and defined goal. I would say a unique talent. I think that is important, because what's going to happen is, even if you manage to trick off and get one song that works, what's the next trick pony going to be? You know what I'm saying? When you look at no shots at Designer, but remember when he came out, he sounded exactly like Future to a lot of people. he had a diamond single, which is an incredible success. But what happens after that? You know what I'm saying? So having a unique talent. And then third, from where I sit, is a three-way tie between you need to have determination, be able to be consistent, and have thick skin. I would say you need all three of those. If you lack in any of that, it's a tough industry and it's only getting tougher. So I would say those three things.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Last question.
Uh-oh, no pressure.
No pressure at all. Hi, thanks again for coming through, man.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. All
Of
the
course.
advice. I'm Ade Wolf. I'm an Afro hop artist.
Nice.
My question for you, I sneaked in a second question, but the first one is, in today's kind of fast-paced, ever-changing world, like, what strategies do you recommend to stay motivated and focused on long-term goals? That's the first one.
That's probably one of the most difficult to. You know what? I would say developing the ability to navigate and to adapt and to pivot. Those are all synonyms, but same thing that I'm trying to get across. In an ever-changing world, the only strategy you can have is to always be able to tweak your strategy, because you can't. It's impossible to be too rigid right now, because the rate at which things are happening has never happened before, not just within music, but within the human race. Even if we look at how fast AI is coming up on us, the reality is that the rate of growth is growing. It's every month is growing exponentially. So where AI was only able to do something maybe 6 months ago that would have took this amount of time, this month it takes this amount of time. And you might say, well, I don't understand how that's relevant to what we're doing. But the thing is that AI is going to be able to copy, manipulate, innovate, all these different things, and it's literally going to change the way that we make music. It already has. Any producers or anybody here that is tech savvy, that we already know how much AI is implemented with everything that we do. But it is going to be something that we're going to have to reckon with and understand with, and we're going to have to, at some point in time, we're going to have to understand how to work with it and how to move with it. And that's just one example. That's just AI alone. So I think really the answer to your question, or the suggestion that I'm giving back, would be to develop a way to pivot, to navigate, and to figure it out. Because some people have blinders on and they're like, okay, I see a path right down the middle of this room where it's a clear path. But the funny thing is, you might get halfway and the people that might move their chairs and block off your path. And for some people, they're stuck. They'll come all the way back, sit down and figure it out. Whereas there's those people that can get right into the thick of things and figure out how to navigate to get where they need to go. So I really think that is one of the biggest things that you should work on within yourself, within the industry, is the ability to pivot and to navigate and ever be evolving and learn.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
For sure.
The second one is, I feel like you have such an amazing flow as an hip-hop artist. And I feel like, what do you do to kind of keep that flow fresh? I feel like you have such an astounding flow with the way you use your syllables and manipulate words on a beat. Do you have any ways you've used to develop that style?
Yes, I listen to all my favorite MCs and I cry myself to sleep every night, and then figure out how can I get out of this depression. You know what it is, honestly? Growing up, shout out to a lot of the amazing artists that we spoke about earlier today, but iron sharpens iron at the end of the day. And this is like quite literally, like we're good, absolutely 100% good now. But at the time, like it was, when me and this guy battled, it was intense. You understand what I'm saying? So even like before and after that, for me, it was always like, my skill level is what got me through the door, because now it's very regular for people to understand that amazing talent comes from Canada. Before, people were laughing at us. We're like, wait a minute, you guys for the place with the Raptors and the you guys got Barney on your jersey and all that? What, you think there's rappers that come from Canada? Like, we always had to be that nice. Like, if you ask, from Sway in the Morning, any of you guys watch my guy Sway in the Morning? Like, Sway will tell you, like, the very first time we went to go see him and King Tech out in the Bay, there was like 30 MCs in the room, literally 30. And out of the 30, they've had me, Socrates, and Chauclair go last, because obviously they're like, we'll get to those Canadians when we get to them. But by the time we did our thing, we crushed it. Like, our only job was to tear a hole in anything, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's that mentality still to this day. And because I told you no pressure, but because it's the last one, it's a pretty cool story, and it's a real story. The first time that I met Dave Chappelle in person, we all got along amazingly. Like, it felt like I knew him forever. And I remember it was me, D-Nice, Usher, a couple other people in the room. And remember, this is my first time meeting Dave Chappelle, so I'm still super geeked out. And he's like, yo, you want to come perform at having this special show tomorrow? You want to come perform at Usher? I'm like, sure, Dave Chappelle. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, Usher is one of the greatest performers, end of sentence. And I have 24 hours to figure it out, but I also don't know what I'm walking into. So I'm like, ugh. I get there, Usher just does his thing, moonwalks off the stage. You give it up for Usher. Everybody's screaming. I'm like, fuck. But anyways, Dave has this live band, and he just starts, he just starts throwing on beats, and I just start tearing that shit apart. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, by the end of that show, now remember, I met Dave the day before, but by the time that show was finished, Dave is like, I need to rock, bro. We need to do this more often. And it was because of, just having those bullets in the chamber, making sure that my craft was the way that it was, making sure my skill level was a certain skill level. But even when you're talking about the flows and the cadences, my whole thing is that I don't care who I'm on stage with, literally. I know that when it comes to me, I'm going to make sure that everybody in the audience remembers me from that day. And that's why just being good is never good enough for me. You know what I'm saying? For me, I got to be the coldest. I got to be the illest in whatever it is that I'm doing, because those people have to remember me. And, from me having that opportunity where Chappelle was like, hey, I want you to come do this random show, from that's been like almost a decade now of being able to, never mind perform with some of the biggest artists in the world in some of the most just magical places. But all of that stemmed from me really honing in on my skill level, my craft, and always doing my thing. And I think that's just how you got to look at it. You know what I'm saying? Is it's like, whoever's an artist, singer, rapper, manager, producer, whatever, you got to be the illest at what you do, because you never know when that opportunity is going to come your way. You know what I'm saying? For somebody that's like, you know what? I have this thing tomorrow, or I have this thing next week, or you know what? I got your email. I think that song is really, really dope. You know what? I might have something for you. You got to stay ready, because there's some people that are definitely not ready. There's some people that might only have the one trick, and after that trick is done, so are they. So for me, that's why, you know what I'm saying, I've always worked at my skill, the flow, the content, even the delivery, all the rest of that. And, I would honestly say that as an artist that may want to collab, or even as a record label exec that may want to figure out ways to partner and work together, is the ones that get through are those people. The people that are that good but are that good the first time, second time, straight through to the 100th time. You know what I'm saying? Those are the people that have long-term careers in this and become those icons that you grew up with and that you remember, and then your kids will discover it and so forth and so forth. So hopefully that answers your question. All right.
Woo. Okay, that is it.
I was like, where is she?
Let's give it up for Kardinal Offishall.